Welcome to Blue Monday from the Blue Room, the first one of Everton's blistering starts to the 25-26 pre-season. I am joined as usual by Roger and Dave, but before we get into all that, usual housekeeping caper. If you're listening on podcast, please do leave us a review, leave us a rating, and share it with anyone you can. Same on YouTube. Leave us a comment, leave us a thumbs up if you like it, and share it far and wide, please, because we're trying to build up the numbers on the YouTube, especially. Because we're nearly at 5,000 subs, so that will be a lovely milestone to hit. Anyway, gents, pre-season. So we've had a 1-1 draw against Accrington and a 0-1 defeat at Blackburn. Dave, me and you have given our thoughts on Blackburn over the weekend, so I'll come to you first, Rog. What have you made of Everton's start to pre-season?
Well, they're just training matches, aren't they? I mean, we can't look at the results, clearly. I have to say I didn't indulge on £7.99 or whatever it was to watch these things. So I can't, I haven't seen much other than a couple of snippets of highlights on social media. We could very easily get carried away by failing to score in open play for 180 minutes against substandard opposition. But we've only conceded 2. I think these are purely training matches, and I think really the test will come in America when we're playing Premier League opposition. The fear is obviously that we are not just undercooked, but that we are lacking in resources. And I think with the addition of Travers, who looks useful, made a good save, that good one-handed save around the corner from the free kick. It's still, by my reckoning, only got 19 players. So this is a shortfall, and the start to the season is getting nearer and nearer. Having said that, Newcastle United, who are in Europe, got humped 4-0 by Celtic. So, do we pay attention to results? Probably not. Minutes in the legs, well, yeah, fine. But minutes in the legs, can you get that on the training ground as effectively as running around the Wham Stadium in the pissing rain? I don't know. I don't know. I'd like to have seen us score a goal or two more. Well, a goal or two from open play. So that is the ongoing concern. And I think midfield is still a real issue, isn't it? Let's be honest. Who's going to play there alongside Idrissa? I don't believe Ghana has set the world on fire in either match. Armstrong's been okay. We're just debating, because according to Everton, he didn't even come on against Blackburn, but apparently he did. And I suppose, players with the talent like Alcaraz, you'd like to think he could make a difference in it against Blackburn or Accrington. But they're just training matches, aren't they? Let's not get overly excited. My main priority is to get some bloody more players in.
Yeah, we will come on to that shortly, Rog. David, I think for me, like Roger said, you can't get too carried away with pre-season. I think we said on Saturday, didn't we? Moyes had some notoriously awful pre-season build-ups, and then we'd have a good season on the back of it. So you can't draw too much into it. I think for me, though, like we said, it's the same old deficiencies are there. And I know we've signed Travers and we've signed Barry, who's not had a game yet. We signed Alcaraz, obviously. He's had a bit of a slow start. But for me, it's basically just a continuation of last season. Defence looks pretty good, but is prone to conceding a goal like any defence is. And then up top, we're just not creating enough chances. And I think to have not scored in either game is disappointing, isn't it?
Yeah, and 28 days to go until we got Leeds, isn't it? At Ellen Road.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, if you reflect on what we've seen the first 2 games and compare it to that, I can imagine. I think we've spoken a few times. I'm quite scared of going to Leeds away on a Monday night, because they are going to be. I mean, you imagine the atmosphere there is going to be crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then the one of the 3 who came up, who I think have got a decent chance of staying up. But yeah, you're right going into all this. So well, if you compared it to a bit of steak you get from a butcher's, it hasn't been taken out the freezer yet. It feels like we're miles away from getting to a position where we're ready to go into this season. And look, I'm sure in our replies that we get on YouTube and Spotify and whatever it is you listen to us, that people are saying, "Oh, you can't panic yet." I think a couple of them didn't we? After we were talking about the post match against Blackburn, but it's still of a concern. Your point's absolutely right there about Moyes going into seasons with the awful pre-season, and things haven't been ready. There's players who just sort of drafted in from the under-12s in the end and things like that to take squads around with you. But that doesn't make too much of a difference to me because we need to see these lads together. And you're spot on. I mean, those first 2 games, I haven't told it yet. Maybe Roger has. We can't have had more than maybe 2 or 3 shots on target, and the one goal we scored was a penalty from Beto, who celebrated it like he won the World Cup. I mean, watching those games, they were difficult to watch. I'm staying away from saying that I paid 16 quid for those 2 matches because I feel like I really should have given it to charity. So yeah, I mean, it's a difficult process now because we're all excited. The stadium, we're hearing new things, new news about it coming up. It's not reflected by what we're seeing on the pitch, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, I think for me, I did want to see more. You can understand Accrington maybe because I think there was a lot of kids involved in that game. I only saw the second half, but I think that Blackburn was more like we said, it could potentially be our starting squad, our starting team, more or less, for the Leeds game. And Roger, if we went into the opening game with that team, that could be a bit of a disaster. But we'll move on to sort of what do you think the priority areas of the squad are, or is it just the whole squad? Because we talked about midfield last week, but one thing that was highlighted to me at the weekend, and we spoke to Dave about this, was the fact that our defence, if you take one player out of our defence, suddenly that looks a bit threadbare. Obviously, Nathan Patterson didn't have a good game, really. He grew into it a bit. He got better. He couldn't get any worse. He had a terrible start. He got better as the game went on, but he just doesn't look like he's going to make that right-back spot his own. If you've got a player who's desperate to get that spot, he's got a good opportunity to make that spot his own, and he doesn't really seem to be pulling up any trees. So I think we could be seeing Jake O'Brien at right back for the start of the season, potentially. That could mean that Michael Keane does get his centre-back spot if James Tarkowski's still injured. So that, to me, makes defence a bit of a priority. But like we said, the midfield is. And if the attack isn't scoring, although we've got Barry, does that need more? I've asked you a big question there. What do you reckon that the sort of priority area is if you could sort of pick one part of the team?
I think it's the right-hand side. I know Paddy goes on about this on the byline. It's the right-hand side. We need a right back. Come on, let's be honest about it. Patterson has had more than enough chances, more than enough lives. He hasn't taken any of them. And I don't think he's Premier League quality. And I'd like to see us, don't want to reduce the squad, but sell him back to Rangers. Come on, let's get on with it. We don't want him, do we? Nobody seems to trust him. And his performances don't, in my opinion, aren't good enough to play in the Premier League, where this Premier League, we could talk a lot about, whether the promoted teams will stay up or not. But I think the standard of football in the Premier League is getting better year on year. And I think pace is getting more important year on year. And when you think of the right back position, a lot of fast people running at you, and Nathan Patterson, I don't think is good enough to play that position. We need a right back, okay? We need a right winger, I think, definitely. I think we need another central midfielder, whether that be a holder or more of a box-to-box player. And we need another attacker. We need another potential goal scorer. I don't think Chimiti is particularly fancied. I suspect he'll go out on loan. He's had 60 minutes and 20 minutes against the mighty Accrington and the Blackburn Rovers. So I'd like to. I mean, Beto's fine, and Barry will be fine, and Ndai is fine. But we need another player at the top of the pitch. So that's what, 4. What's the squad size? 24, 25, is it? 26? What's your Premier League?
Yeah, it's 25, I think.
25. So we're 6 short. Okay, we could put, we've got Coleman in there as well, and we'll be lucky if we get 10 games out of him starting wise. Okay, he'll be like the permanent substitute, and that's fine. Don't have a problem with keeping him. But you're right, Tarkowski's also a bit of a concern. Will he be fit for the start of the season? And if we don't have a right back, then Big Jake goes over to right back, and we're left with Keane and Branthwaite. And when Keane and Branthwaite have played together, it's been a bit of a mess, really, because I don't think Branthwaite trusts Keane. So that I don't really want to see Michael Keane starting against Leeds unless it's an absolute emergency, and Branthwaite, for example, gets injured in America and is out for a couple of months, which would be disastrous. So yeah, a right back, a right winger, a central midfielder, and another attacker. That's 4. Still would only give us 23 players.
Yeah, it feels like it'd be a bit pricey as well to pick up those players unless we're really good in the sort of in the loans market, which notoriously we have been in the past. So
yeah, we got 4 loan
some,
slots, and you'd like to think that we could fill them,
yeah,
but we haven't done particularly well in the, Blomqvist, not Blomqvist, what was his name? Blomqvist was at Man
Lindstrom,
United. Lindstrom,
same guy, same fella.
yeah, Lindstrom. We need another
Blomqvist
Lindstrom.
was better.
Blomqvist was good player, yeah. Yeah, I think the loan market should be ideal for a striker and maybe a wide player, but I think we need to sign a right back.
Yeah.
Carl Walker-Peters hasn't signed anywhere, by the way. Is he still knocking around? He gave up
No,
on
he's-
Fenerbahce, didn't he? Did he
he's
sign
gone.
in the end?
Yeah, I think they have. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I
thought
saw that was up in the air over the weekend.
No, I think he's gone there.
Oh, he has now. Oh, okay. And Kenny Tette's staying where he's, and Carl Walker's gone to Burnley, which is a great relief from everyone, apart from Burnley fans, I suppose.
Yeah.
Walker Peters joined West Ham.
West
Has
Ham.
he gone there? Has he?
Yeah,
Wow.
fullback completes London Stadium move as free agent. That was yesterday, I think. Yeah,
that's a bad miss for us. That I think that's a big miss. That.
And thankfully, Evan Ferguson's gone on loan to somewhere in Italy, so
Roma.
we won't be getting him.
Roma. He's gone to Roma, hasn't he?
He has. Oh, he has. Yeah.
we can still probably get him then, can't we? He's with our brothers.
They'll probably loan him to us.
Yeah.
You could do one week for Roma. Yeah.
Do you know, it's funny how quick people change and sort of like just fall by the wayside, isn't it? Because I was a massive fan of his when they played us, and I think they hammered us a couple of years ago at Goodison, and I looked at him and I thought, this lad's got every single thing you need as a top striker, and he just seemed to fall just even down the pecking order. He wasn't getting in a game at Brighton, was he?
He got pictured up with Conor McGregor, and that's bad news all day, isn't it? So.
Well, yeah, there you go. So he was someone I was looking at thinking, is he the type that you bring in and sort of shape around that? And Everton are notoriously quite poor at doing that, aren't they? You're getting a player in that you think, well, we can improve him, we can get him on the cheap and then make him a lot better. We don't generally have a good record of doing that sort of thing. So I think the example of Calvert-Lewin's right there as well, isn't it? You don't want somebody in there. He's had some tough injuries as well. But it's the kind of player to look like thinking, I'll probably tell you, I told you so in a couple of years when he's banging them in.
I think Moyes has done that in the past, hasn't he? I think Moyes has picked up loan players who've not been fancied at their clubs, and he has made them much better players. But yeah, you're right. It's not something Everton have been good at in the last few years. Just looking at the team on Saturday, then Dave. Just say we do sign a right back, and say Tarkowski is out for a while. You happy with Branthwaite and O'Brien? I know you said a lot that you want that to be sort of as the season comes to a close next season, you'd like that to be the starting centre back pairing and the one going forward. Happy with the two of them playing together?
In general and easy, yes, but I don't think they've done it enough yet to put your complete trust on it. Particularly going away to Leeds as well. I'm talking as if Leeds are the Champions League, Club World Cup winners who've won the Premier League for the last 5 seasons on the spin. But that's going to be a tough one because they launch it in a lot. They whip balls in from each flank. I suppose in layman terms you'd say that's what Branthwaite and O'Brien have at the top of the list of what they're good at. But inexperience paired at the back, I don't take the fact that they're young players. Because let's face it, what are they, 23 and 20, same age, are they? 23, 22, something like that?
Yeah, they're both about that, yeah.
Similar ages, but, that I think it's really lazy for people who start saying, they're really young defenders. 22 and 23 is not a young footballer. It's certainly experience-wise. They've both played abroad. They've both played enough games for Everton now to know what the Premier League's like, so that it should work. I'm trying to talk myself into it being something that we really need to do from day one. But I think you need Tarkowski in there if he's fit next to O'Brien. And then, I think it takes the pressure off in some way of getting a right back in as an immediate replacement for a Patterson because you put O'Brien to right back, which he's been the best of them, let's be honest. He's been our best right back for, the last 2 seasons now, is it? Or the last 1 season at least. So I don't have a problem with doing that. It's the other lad that's going to be next to Branthwaite. Well, both with it being Tarkowski or somebody else, it'll be Keane. So there's a lot to shuffle at the back there, and I'd like to think that Moyes is having a good look at this to be able to say to them, look, if I replace you, if you've got to come in, if someone's injured, then they're ready to go in at that level. Not too sure I'm fully confident with that. I think Keane had come in with a lot of pressure on his shoulders, and that's just simply from us as fans. I think he come out with his comments and the interview he did last week, and he was saying, when he earned his new contract, and he was like, he was quite open and honest. And he said, look, he said, I think I'm still good enough to be a Premier League centre back. So he's obviously stayed with that intention to still be a regular centre back at Everton. That might not be the case, and I think most of us, if not all, won't like that. If you were to tell me he played more than 20 games this season starting, most of us would be saying, well, you don't want that to happen. Everton will be possibly in trouble. I think that's harsh against him. And I like the way he's gone about. Obviously, but most players are going to scream and shout to get a new contract, aren't they? But I actually like Keane in how he approaches the way he talks in the media and things like that. So if he goes in, yeah, that's fine. O'Brien to right back. That's why we've banged on quite a lot, haven't we, about needing the 4 centre backs there. But you need 4. Well, you need at least 3 of them to be really good quality centre backs, and the 4th to be a genuine replacement. I think we have that if Tarkowski's fit with the other 3. So that to me, you don't really need anything. I just think what Roger says there, the emphasis is on that right back slot, because it can be all well and good that we're putting O'Brien in there, that we don't have a problem with him going there, but it's getting a consistent side that where you've got a tempo about it, you know what you're doing, you're not looking at a different player there thinking I need to play the ball differently, do I just clear it or do I lay it off? All of those sorts of minute parts of the process you need to have at the back. You need to have a solid back line, and it's the best part of Everton these days, isn't it? So if that breaks down, then you sort of do start to worry, like we have done in the past few seasons. So I think we've spoken a lot too, haven't we, Roger, about the capability of this side to finish in the lower top half, mid-table side.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think if you have everybody fit right now, you're still within that region of where we were last season, because we need some more players. And when you mentioned it, half a dozen basically, I think that is the minimum of what we need. I think when you mentioned there the loan market, we are really good at that, and we have been, and we've been reliant upon it. I think the difference now is it doesn't feel like we're reliant upon it financially. So that means it's a bit of a luxury to be able to go and do that if we get these lads in that we need to. If you go and buying them and spending a lot of money, i.e. Barry, then you've got that loan market to think, you know what, we can take a chance on this player. You've got somebody, a younger player who might be a real talent that you're able to go and get. I don't want the loan market to be, wow, that's like be all and end all of what we need to go and do in order to get a player who comes in and they start straight away.
Yeah, I think on loans as well, I think one of Moyes' things is he doesn't like to develop players for other teams, does he? So like you see, when he's got a loan signing in, it's with a view to we want to improve this player and buy him. So I think that's definitely something we need to look at, and it's, I don't know, I think the lack of noise around anything is a little bit of a concern for me, which we'll come on to now. But just quickly on the centre backs, like we said the other week, I'm quite happy with Michael Keane signing and sort of filling in that 4th centre back slot. But I will be worried if Tarkowski's still out, because I think, he needs to get back in the squad and training as soon as possible, because we saw last season 2 big issues. When Michael Keane played with Brantford, like you said, Roger didn't really click at all, and we conceded, 16 goals in the first 6 games or something mad. We were conceding goals all over the shop, and Michael Keane seemed to be a big part of that because he wasn't playing well and looked to be like an unease around the defence. But by the same token, when Tarkowski came back in and wasn't fully fit, he was making mistakes all over the shop as well. He was doing his hard man thing where he was overcompensating by making stupid fouls. So I think it's a bit of a concern if Tarkowski doesn't come back soon. That's a concern, because we'll either have to play Michael Keane potentially, or he will come in not fully match fit, and then that causes problems in itself. So that could be a bit of a headache. But hopefully we'll be back next week, but we've not heard anything. But yeah, just on signings then. I'll come to you, Rog. Are you a bit concerned that there's been no noise around anything? I know we've spoken like the Freaking group seems to be very quiet and don't make a big fanfare of anything. Things just kind of get done in the background. But there's been nothing, has there? There's been no sort of real talk of any players in these positions that we need.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no, because we've been, like a leaky old bucket with not just one hole, but about 10 in them for the last few years under Mashiri. Yeah, there were sources coming out of every orifice of the club with reported signings and interest and what have you. You can play that market cleverly. You can, and again, I'm sorry to bring them up, but the Red Shite do it brilliantly, leaking this story, that story, and the other story. So and so's available, but only for this. We're interested in this player. Look at the way they've played Newcastle and Isak.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary. It's really clever. Hopefully, behind the scenes, there's lots of analysis going on with lots of clever people looking at lots of numbers, and they've got a whole list of fullbacks lined up. And on Wednesday, we'll find that we've signed one, and we've signed a winger, and we've signed another striker. We have money to spend, don't we? Apparently. We don't have many players to sell that we would want to sell to raise money. We're keeping Branthwaite, we're keeping Pickford. So, those are the talented players that we wouldn't, we're not reliant upon selling to buy. So I'd like to think we've got another 50, 60 million to spend. And that should be enough to get us an okay right back that can, is a specialist right back and can perform well. And another body in midfield and someone else at the top of the pitch in the loan market for the rest. So I'm not concerned about the silence. It's just that every day that goes by with nothing is just another on the negative side of the scales. It's another weight on there. And I don't know. I don't know. I mean, Barry's gone away on holiday. Yeah, so I'm not sure if he's back with the squad now, if he's had his holidays and he's going to do a bit of training before they go over stateside. But I think it's not just impatience because, we want to see signings because we want to see signings. It's about, pre-season's important, isn't it? Not just for fitness, but to develop patterns of play and understanding in new players. And I understand other teams haven't made signings, but other teams have got a full squad to start with. We haven't. And the sooner the better to integrate and get them training together and understanding each other. These 3 games in America are huge. I think this will tell us a lot about where we're up to. And right now, this squad is not. I disagree with you, actually, Dave. I don't think this squad is the top half of the table squad now because we've lost players. We've lost Doucouré. We've lost Ashley Young. Okay, fine. And we've lost Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Okay, but we have lost players. We've let players go, right? So these 19 players, this isn't good enough, in my opinion, to be top half. Probably good enough to stay up, but we want to be progressing. And as we've said all along, there's not much between finishing 8th and finishing 14th, but 8th is likely to come with European riches, and I think that is attainable if we can do some more additions. So I'd like to see them. I'd like to see some action, but what we're going to say by this time next week. I think I'm going to say 1.
Oh, you say?
I'm going to say 1.
Wow!
Optimism.
Steady on there, Roger. Calm down.
Off the scale. Do you know what? I think the worry for me is this tournament because it's going to take up a lot of time for Moyes, for the squad, and I do just wonder how the logistics work of getting players in while we're away at a tournament like that. Because aside from the games that are getting played in the preparation for that, there's going to be loads of PR things that they're going to be doing. It's going to be a full schedule.
We'll be doing it. Look at us with our wonderful American fans, and look at the boat trip down the river in Chicago. And isn't it all wonderful? Yeah. And now we've got American owners. We're making the best of it. And the eye will be off the ball of the playing and the results because it will be, it doesn't matter. It's only pre-season. It's fine. The reason I said 1 was that it might force one of you two to say none.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Hey, just before I come to you on that, right? So Rod said, this team good enough to stay up. What if next season we do finish 16th or something? Do you think the pitchforks will be out for Moyes? Because when he first came to Everton, we did have very, very up and down. We do one good season, one bad, one good, one bad, and then it levelled off and we were pretty consistent. When he was at West Ham, before he qualified for the Europa Conference and won that, I think they finished 13th, 16th, 12th, then 7th. So they had a massive jump. So I know I've said we'll finish 8th, and I think you guys said we'll finish maybe 12th, something like that. What if we do drop off and finish 16th? Should we start preparing ourselves for that? Or is that a bit pessimistic?
I think it's fair to say because we're stepping into the unknown here, aren't we? We're going into the season with a lot of optimism now. And look, it's easy to attach that with the stadium. I mean, let's take away the stadium. If we were going into a normal season at Goodison right now, I think our expectations would be a little bit lower than what they are in being able to challenge for European football, or certainly we wouldn't be as excited until we actually sign some players. The fact that the stadium's there is everybody can't wait and counting down the days until they go and sit in the stadium. I think you get to that stage when you've been given, let's hope, a bit of financial clout to go and sort out this squad. It's a true measure of how you've done in the season is where you finish. It's an old adage, isn't it? It doesn't lie. If we were to finish 16th under Moyes, having spent, I don't know. I mean, if he did it now with the squad he's got, I think, like Roger says there, I think he'd be staying up. That's probably the challenge. As much as I was as optimistic as to get a top half finish. If we're to do that with the players we get in, then his job's on the line then. And it's obviously, how long's he got? That's 2 years, isn't he? So this is his second year now.
Yeah.
No, 2.5 years, isn't it?
2.5. So he's got 2 years from now.
Yeah. So with a year contract left, it wouldn't be an issue for Everton to sort that out, given the compensation that we normally give for about 80 million quid and then get somebody else in. I don't think our owners are like that, despite the fact what's happened over at Roma. I think they might well have learned the lesson doing that. They'll have learned the lesson, certainly, if they've done the homework of what's been happening in Everton for recent years before they came in and bought us with Mashiri there. But I do think his job would be in trouble if he went and did that. I think you get a lot of fans. I mean, I've seen a couple of fans on social media, which is obviously quite funny, saying you need to get rid of him now because he hasn't signed any players. I'm not going to step that far, but I think it's sort of asking the question of what's the minimum requirement here, and it's hard to reflect that with what Roger said about not having the players we want. I think you do sort of stick looking down the line. The new owners, new stadium, everything's going to be really good and positive. Well, the stuff that's happening on the pitch sort of takes secondary, even third, in terms of the opinion of many right now. And if you turn and look at it like we have in those first 2 games against, let's face it, two sides which we should be beating, or we certainly should be having a couple of shots on target against them. It is a concern, but I think Moyes is well versed in all of this, isn't he? And I think we said at the start of the show that he tends to pluck new players from relative obscurity, and I think he's still able to go and do that. Not that I think he has to go and do that, and I think the real interesting dynamic here is that if Moyes has got money to spend, it's something he's being given at Everton that he's never had with us before. So I'm quite intrigued to see what he can go and do with it. Now, it's almost a victim of his own success, if you bear with me, because when he came in and we barely had a pot to piss in, we went and got those finishes every other season of the top 7, become the best of the rest. We had that one season getting into the Champions League. That was without spending much at all. And the funny thing was we went and got like the likes of Andy Johnson. Yakubu was a success, but when we spent a lot of money on players, it was generally they're just as good, if not a little bit worse than the ones we've got for relatively nothing. So I'm intrigued to see what he can do with the money. The Dylan Dave sayings there right now, though, isn't it, with an asterisk next to it? That's what I'm looking at. Thinking, where's these fucking players here? We've got money in the bank. Where's these players? People want to see them in the States. We'll get more Everton fans. You take some players with you. And I think you mentioned there, by the way, just going back to it briefly, about going to the States. We're playing Premier League opposition. I think there's quite a substantial amount of pressure on this, because if we were to go there and get destroyed by those 3 games, or certainly not perform well in at least 2 or 3 of them, then you're looking at this season thinking, yeah, it's going to be hitting the sort of emergency button and looking for players as soon as you possibly can. And then we get to that dreaded deadline day and looking around, and you're waiting to watch bloody someone saying that we're signing someone's turned up in a car, but it's too late. All of that. I mean, if we get to the end of September and we're doing a late night show where the deadline day is just being closed, and we're talking about who we have signed, who's got the paperwork in on time, that's a massive concern that I've got. We need to get our business done as soon as possible. Again, 28 days to go. It doesn't look like it's happening anytime soon, does it?
I think one one thing we've learned from like the whole Mashiri saga was that just because you've got money, you don't have to spend it. There are other ways, like by looking at the loan markets.
But we have
I'm
to
just
now,
gonna.
Les, don't you think? Do you not
What's
think
that?
it's an essential right now? Do you not think?
Yeah, but we've got to spend it right, and I think we just can't panic, can we? I know it is like pressing that we fill up the squad, but it's got to be the right players. We can't keep making those mistakes of, like if we'd gone out and signed Kyle Walker from City, that would have been a massive, massive mistake and very reminiscent of what we did in previous years. So we just gotta be a bit smarter with what we're doing. I
But the
think
pressure on that, though, Les, the pressure is
oh,
increasing day by day, isn't it?
it is, and the longer it goes on as well, the harder players become to get for less money because clubs will see you're desperate. They push up the price. If we do go into the season right and we're undercooked, I suppose one positive is there's only 2 games before deadline day, where in previous seasons there've been 3 or 4. So there's only 2 games that we might potentially throw. But one is against Leeds, who would imagine they're going to be in and around where we are, bottom half, maybe relegation places for them. And one is against Brighton, who as good
Destroy
as
us
they
all.
are generally mid-table. They always batter us at home anyway, don't
Yeah.
they?
Can you imagine the amount of pressure that's going to be on that first game at Bramley-Moore?
Oh, yeah, it's gonna be huge. It really is. It's gonna be a strange one actually. I think they're one of the worst sides we could have got to play.
Historic, yeah, exactly. Yeah, historic side.
Yeah,
Historic beatings by them. It's going to be a historic day, the first game at a new stadium.
and it's
The
not.
pressure's on, regardless of how many players you got. The pressure's on them.
Yeah, it is. Just before we finish, then we'll quickly look ahead to this pre-season tournament. So we've got Bournemouth, West Ham, and Man United. All have started their pre-season, and Bournemouth have played one pre-season game so far, which was a 2-1 win against Hibs. West Ham have beaten Grasshoppers 3-1 in their only pre-season. And Man United famously got beat by the Asian All-Stars 1-0, beat Hong Kong 3-1, and then drew 0-0 with Leeds at the weekend. So I think if we look at those 3 clubs, like you said, they are 3 teams that will probably be in and around where we are to varying degrees. I imagine Bournemouth maybe a little bit ahead. United, no clue. West Ham around the same or below potentially. But yeah, 3 good games, Roger, to gauge where this squad is. Are you comfortable that this squad as it is could do anything against Bournemouth on Saturday?
I'm not, and I don't think we should forget that, Coleman is one of these 19 players. He's not starting necessarily.
Yeah,
Patterson, we've said, is not a starter, so that's 2. Chimiti, we're not sure, will he stay, will he go out on loan? And Harrison Armstrong is fighting for a place in the squad. So there
And
are
a
4
backup
players,
keeper. Backup keeper.
and the backup keeper, right? But
yeah,
there's 4 players outside of Travers who we suspect may not be part of, may not be in contention for a starting berth, right? I think it was highly unlikely that Chimiti or Armstrong or Irabunum, for that matter, or Patterson or Coleman are in contention for a starting berth. So we need people compete, not just a squad of numbers, but people who are competing for that starting 11. So no, I don't think this is good enough in terms of first team choices and competition to play Bournemouth in a competitive fixture in the league. Obviously, this American tournament is not as competitive. But as I said last week or the week before, I think these are 3 ideal opponents because we should be, Bournemouth perhaps the hardest, although they have sold their defence and Zabani's going to, I think Spurs have said they'll take him now. So that's almost their entire defence. They've replaced Kirkes with some fullback from Rennes, I think, or Lens for 10 or 12 million. And they've still got Evan Nielsen. I think Semenyo signed a new contract. Apparently, they've got Cliver. They've got, they've got the body of a, core of a decent squad. And attacking wise, they're very dangerous, very basic. West Ham, I think, are pants, and we should be beating West Ham. And United are a basket case, so we should be beating them, really, because they've no changes in personnel. Okay, they've got Brian and Bomo. Okay, fine, and they've taken longer to sign him than we have to. I mean. The fact that they moved up by something like 5 million, it took them 4 weeks to do it. What's the point? It's as bad as Arsenal trying to sign a striker. I think they might sign Jokeros in 2029 at this rate. So no, I don't think this squad is good enough. And I think in terms of a first team, I think we need more options to be competitive in the Premier League, and that is called the Premier League Series in America. Those 3 games, I think we need more. I think we need more resources.
Yeah, that is quite frightening, that isn't it, Dave? When Roger puts it like that, the fact that we've got 19 players, four of which probably potentially won't be in contention. One is a keeper, so that leaves you at what, 14 players?
Well,
And that's like that's
Competing
a
for
Sunday
11
league squad
positions.
basically. You've
Yeah.
got your 11 players on the pitch and three subs to choose from. That is quite a concern, that, isn't it?
well, not to put too fine a point on it, you want them to not be first team players, because if they are, that shows we haven't signed enough anyway, and that's the big issue there for me. Idabrunham's looked promising. He did at Accrington. Again, bit of a pinch of salt, isn't it? All of these players playing well. Armstrong looks like a real talent. Is he ready? Does Moyes take a risk on it? He generally isn't that kind of manager to do so. To put him out on, if he doesn't go out on loan, I think that shows a lot of the lack of squad that we've got, and that's not to do him a disservice, because I'd like to see him play as a Premier League player for us. But you're at that stage of your early career, and Derby really liked him. Do you need to do that twice? Yeah, I mean, people might slate me for this, but if you remember Mason Mount, he did, and it was at Derby as well. He pretty much got them nearly promoted there when Frank Lampard was the manager, and he was their best player by an absolute mile. Now, if you go and do that, Mason Mount has obviously fallen off a cliff in the last few years, injury-wise and things. But if Everton are going able to use that as a bit of a sort of trampoline effect for him, then that's great. But like you say there, Roger, those players there, those four, if Everton are starting any of those against Brighton, that's I'm quite fearful with that, and that isn't doing them much of a disrespect. I hope people are not taking that the wrong way, but it means we got nowhere near the amount that we need, nowhere near ready for the start of a Premier League season. And just to reiterate, going and playing three sides there in the league, it's the real acid test, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the acid test of players, Dave. Sorry to jump in.
No,
But
you're right.
Irobounam can look great against Accrington, and good for him. And other players can have shone against lower league opposition. But playing against Premier League opposition is very, very different. Nathan Patterson should be looking competent against Blackburn. He wasn't. So how competent will he look against Premier League opposition? And Irobounam, he's unproven. He started positively and then had an injury. So right off last season, give him clean slate, on you go. But we'll learn about these players playing minutes in America against Bournemouth, West Ham, and Man United, because that is the level that they're going to have to perform with 38 times.
Yeah, I think it's a good point about Armstrong as well, Dave. So he's only 18, he's 19 in January, and to break into a Premier League squad, particularly in centre mid, which for me is just the toughest position on the pitch, you've got to be something special. Now, he has looked good, but there's something special category. I think you're talking like Wayne Rooney. Maybe not as good as Wayne Rooney, but not a lot below Wayne Rooney to break into a Premier League team at 18. It's going to be a big ask, and I think you're right. If we don't loan him out again, it's either showing that we have got like a scarcity of resource, or he is actually exceptional. But the worst thing that can happen for him is we keep him and he sits on the bench and he doesn't get much game time, or he gets thrown on when we're a little bit desperate and we're short and someone's injured. I think a loan move would do him do better for him. Like you say, at Derby County, where they loved him, he played brilliant. He was obviously enjoying that. That's going to be far more beneficial than sitting on our bench. But we don't know where we'll be starting the season. He might be good enough. I hope he is, because he has looked. He's come in and I think in the last two games, he's probably looked the best player on the pitch.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think you get to a stage where he's sort of twixt in between, well, loan him out, but we might need him, so don't. It's detrimental to him if he's sitting on the bench all season, even if he's first choice to come on for any injured player, because then he's himself as a person, obviously, and he's a human being, and he's a professional footballer. He wants to play the Premier League as much as possible. You don't want him sitting there thinking, oh, I hope he's done his ankle in there for a couple of games so I can get a go. That, firstly, you don't want him to have that attitude, and secondly, you want him to get out there and play as much football as he possibly can. Is he already a championship standard player? Absolutely. At 18, that's a really promising look at him, from what we want and what we need. These two games with an asterisk next to them so far, given the quality of opposition, looked really comfortable on the ball. Looks like he's got every potential of what you need. But like Roger said there, you need to reiterate that it's a different level that you're stepping up to here, regardless of we're playing three sides that we're probably in comparison with. And ones that you're obviously not going to be challenging for Champions League positions, albeit Bournemouth were up until the last 10 games and they cocked it up. You're playing against sides that are better than Derby, much better than Derby. So, I mean, we're in a position now that's interesting for him. I think he's probably looking there thinking, I've got a big opportunity here to go and do that myself. I mean, if he was to go there and rip it apart, then that's a different question you start looking at, particularly given the recruitment that we may or may not have done. And Moyes might be looking at it thinking, do you know what? He's probably one of me. Again, we're talking about midfielders. Probably need 4 or 5 midfielders there. You thinking, is he one of those? Is he worthy of one of those positions? If he is, I think that gives us 2 questions, doesn't it? Have we signed anybody or enough in order to loan him? / is he good enough to be there? And I don't want that to be us having to guess or us having to have a debate whether he stayed there because he's good enough / he stayed there because there's nobody else. His priority for himself needs to be based on the fact that he hasn't got to be there for a particular reason that isn't based on his game, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. Rog, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, I was just picking our starting 11, right? Okay, away to Leeds.
How long did that take you?
Very, very short period of time. Pickford in goal, O'Brien at right back, Mikolenko left back, Tarkowski and Branthwaite in the middle, Garner and Alcaraz in midfield, Beto, McNeil and Ndiaye up top, right? Barry on the bench, Irabuna on the bench, maybe Armstrong on the bench, maybe Chimiti on the bench, Keane, Coleman, Travers, potential substitutes. That's all we've got. That is the squad.
Yeah.
So that starting 11 has nobody new other than Alcaraz, who arguably isn't new. Okay. And I think that is a poor window. But that's where we are right now. Okay. 4 weeks to go, 28 days, lots can happen, of course. But that starting 11, Pickford, O'Brien, Mikolenko, Tarkowski, Branthwaite, Garner, Alcaraz, Beto, McNeil, and Ndiaye. I'm not missing anyone. Barry would start on the bench. Maybe it's between him and Beto. Maybe Irabunam and Garner or Armstrong competing, but Garner starts, Alcaraz starts. You know, we're not improving. We're not improving at the top of the pitch. That's where I think we need more variety, more options, and the ability to change a game from the bench. This is very, very important. City do it all the time. Liverpool do it all the time. Chelsea, for God's sake, they've got 42 players. But
that was an issue, wasn't it? Any subs were pretty much like for like. It was just you're taking one player off because he's tired and replacing with a less tired player who's the same. We're not ringing alarm bells yet. There's, like you said, there's 4 weeks, but the club probably do need to get a bit of a move on, particularly with this American tour coming up. We'll leave it there for this week.
Hang on, how many signings are we going to do? You two have to put your neck on the line. Come on, I've said 1.
Tell you what, I'll go 2. I'll trump it. I'll go 2. We'll have a loan and a permanent.
Dave, you're going to have to go 3 here. You can't be limited, Nelly.
I'm gonna go back on myself. I don't think we'll get any because of going because of going to America. I mean, I was talking about this last week about I think Chelsea signed a couple of players whilst they were in the States, who were able to Delap being one of them who got to go over there and actually play. I don't think Everton are the kind of side let's sign a player back home and fly him out there and do his medical when he's abroad and all that. I don't think Everton know how to do that sort of thing. So that's why I'm going to go with 0 for this week.
Well, on that note, hopefully next week we will have a glut of new players in, all the positions will be filled, and we will smack Bournemouth 3-0. We can't hope, can't we? That's it for this week's Blue Monday. As we've got everything coming up this week as usual. Byline tomorrow, we'll have the weekly mailbag, and then we'll have post-match again. It's 9 o'clock at night, isn't it?
Yes.
So it'll be
Bournemouth,
It will be a very late post-match, but there will be a post-match nonetheless. So all the usual stuff coming up as we build up to the new season. Thanks to Rog, thanks to Dave, thanks to everyone for listening. That has been this week's Blue Monday. We will catch you next Monday, hopefully when we're all in a very chipper mood. Up the toffees.